Hi, welcome to my garden. My name is Maggie O'Halloran and I'm one of the educators here at the Florida School of Holistic Living. Today we're in my garden here in Central Florida to talk about this plant, aloe. The aloe plant common name is part of a Liliaceae family of aloe plants that about 3 or 4 are commonly used in the commercial industry. There are a total of about 275 different species in this family, but this is a variety that we will commonly hear as called aloe. This plant, whenever it's really little, if you want to come take a look, whenever it's really little, it has these beautiful little spots on it. And then as it gets older, it loses the spots and the spikes become more defined. This plant, you can see, this plant has a long history of use. We know that some theories that it originated in the southern part of the continent of Africa, but we know that it was used in Egypt. You can find pictures of it in Egyptian tombs. It was considered a sacred plant, a part of burial rituals, and since then has had a really long history of use in wound care and digestive disruption, a lot of skin uses. It's part of the original Egyptian apothecary. In the stories around use in wartime, the plant was used, taken out of the ground. It may have even been a plant that was large, but taken out of the ground and put into backpacks or storage systems and carried in this way without any dirt. So we know that aloe doesn't require a lot of water, but to think about a plant surviving in someone's first aid kit, medical kit, for 3 to 4 weeks at a time is pretty remarkable. The aloe plant has different parts of the plant. The leaves and the root system can make it so that it can last without water for really long periods of time. It likes a lot of heat. I have it growing in mostly sun here in Central Florida. You will see it in gardens further on the western areas of what we now call the United States, but it really prefers a little bit of shade protection. It doesn't want super intense heat, so you'll find it growing under other plants, possibly in locations that don't get the kind of tropical environment that we have here in Central Florida, where it's easy to protect it from really intense heat in the middle of our summers. In the summer here, I will notice in places where I do have it in full sun all day long, lots of heat, the leaves will start to show signs of that. The plant keeps all of its cooling moisture in those leaves, and whenever it's getting too much sun or it's not getting enough water, then it takes that moisture out of the leaves, and you'll notice the leaf tips starting to brown. Actually, this is a really good example. So this plant grows in a location that was showing signs of protecting itself out front before our summer rains started hitting. So you'll notice that this leaf is starting to lose some of its moisture in its tip. It will also do this if it's growing on a larger plant and it has new growth. It will let those leaves on the bottom go and they will dry up and shrivel up. So this plant has a long history of being used as a cooling bitter, both topically and internally. It has different parts of the leaf that we use internally and externally. So when this plant is cut, you'll see that when it's first cut, it starts to heal itself. And that the yellow latex comes out so that it can seal off. And this can be carried or stored in the fridge for weeks at a time. Occasionally I do that if I'm traveling. I'll take a leaf, I'll let it seal up, and I'll keep it either in my cooler or in the fridge to have around if I need it. So if you're utilizing that latex, it's full of anthocyanins, which cause, actually it's a really good laxative, that part of the plant, anthocyanins. And the anthocyanins are found predominantly in the skin or the green areas and in the yellow latex, but they can also be found in that gel. You may have gone into a store and purchased jugs full of that aloe gel to be used internally. The gels that you find in those jugs have gone through a process, and sometimes the process is called purification. But basically, they are getting those anthocyanins out of the aloe gel so that when you're drinking that jug, for its cooling, moistening aspects for your digestive system, to heal the gut from the mouth out to the anus, you are utilizing the cooling, healing aspects, but you're not irritating or stimulating that action through your body. So that gel has been through, that you get in the jugs, has been through that process, so it's a little bit safer to use internally on a regular basis. If you're growing aloe and you want to think about using it internally, take the caution that those anthocyanins are still in the gel and have been found to be contraindicated for people who are pregnant or have irritable conditions of the digestive tract, things like IBS. However, the gel can be helpful in healing that condition, the condition like IBS. So use those things with caution. Think about those with caution and talk to your medical provider before you incorporate aloe into your life in a regular way. You know, sampling it here and there and using it topically has been found to be safe and pretty effective for people. Another note on ingesting aloe, even the gel that you get in the store, is that it's really mucilaginous and has been found to interact with some medications. So if you choose to take in aloe internally, take that caution and make sure you're talking to your medical support team to make sure that you're staying safe and utilizing those pharmaceuticals in the best that you can with what you're taking. Okay, so aloe. I use it mostly for topical skin irritations like minor burns, sunburn, happens a lot in our home, bug bites. The gel has so many healing properties that it doesn't surprise me that for a long time it was just, and you find in a lot of traditions of people who use plants, that it was just cut down the middle and the gel side was applied to wounds and wrapped up for that healing quality. It has a long history of use in that way. So I have this, I've given it some time for the latex to be removed if you want to get up close. I've given it some time for that latex to flow out, and I actually rinsed it off so it's cleaner. And then I will cut these pieces roughly 3 inches. And you'll want to cut off the spines, and some people prefer to cut off the spine before they cut the 3-inch pieces, but I typically do it at this point. If you are planning to use it within a week, the gel can be saved in your refrigerator. If you want to wait longer, if you want to have it stashed longer than that week, this gel will be fine in your freezer. Is there a question?
Why do you need to let the latex come out?
So the latex, it can cause, it's a laxative, so it can be disrupting to your digestive system. And some people incorporate the aloe into their life for that purpose. And if that's your purpose, then the aloe gel has some of the laxative properties already, but there's more in the skins. I have a friend who gets aloe from me, and she was just telling me about how when she was a kid, her mom would put the whole section in the blender once a year, and the kids would drink it. And she knew, like, it tastes bad, it has this really bitter flavor. And it reminded me how so many traditions have a time in the year when they are cleaning out their bodies. So bringing on basically diarrhea. So I'm not suggesting that use of it. I'm just saying that there are a lot of traditions out there that use things like aloe to provide that cleansing to the body. So this aloe gel, I can leave just like this. I can chop it into little pieces, put it into my freezer. Then I have access to aloe gel if there's sunburn, minor cuts, bruises. I get onslaught of mosquitoes. Like today, I can just rub it on. It's really soothing and nourishing to my skin. Or you can put this into a blender and blend it up. Then strain out any of the pulp and use it for hair care products, moistening, soothing. The question?
Do you keep the gel without the skin in the fridge?
So I keep aloe in the fridge in two ways. One is without the skin. Typically I'm freezing it if I'm taking the skin off to keep in the freezer for minor skin irritation. I also keep it in the fridge with the skin on. I might just put this in the fridge and it would last at least a month and look pretty much like this whenever I take it out. But if I'm freezing, I'm definitely taking the skin off. Do you use aloe? Anybody out there use aloe? Comment below. Tell me your story. So my friend that was telling me about this hair product that she makes for her daughter, she uses the aloe from our yard. She was telling me how this is a recipe that she learned from her family growing up, and it's something that she's used for a long time. And she once had a doctor tell her that the aloe gel that he was using in his hair was keeping the gray away, or making his gray hair no longer gray, which I don't know how accurate that is, but it wouldn't hurt to try it. I know that it has a lot of historical uses for people who are trying to regrow hair, and it can be really healing to the scalp. There are historical uses of using aloe gel topically for conditions like eczema, rosacea. When I'm peeling the skin off, I'm keeping my fingers as close to the green as possible because I don't want to waste any of this wonderful gel. It's a fun tactile experience. So I will just continue to do this. Is there a question?
Can you rub that peel wet side on skin?
Definitely, definitely. In fact, this has been used historically as a bandage. So this would be applied to the skin and then wrapped with gauze to act as like an herbal, as a bandage. Mm-hmm.
Do you wash the inner gel fillet first before eating to remove the yellow substance?
So the yellow substance happens when I originally cut the aloe off the plant. So if you come in, I'll show you. Did that kind of backwards. So I grow aloe. I have lots of it in my yard. And aloe, I typically, whenever it's small like this, I let it just grow and do its thing. But whenever it starts getting bigger, it really wants me to use it. And so it grows very happily in Florida sandy soil. In fact, like I mentioned, in a lot of locations, it really kind of grows like one of our air plants. It would need soil to cover those roots. The roots wouldn't want to be in the open air, but your soil needs to be really good at drainage. It does not want to sit in potting soil. Is there a question?
Is it used on cuts, rash? I know burns is good.
Definitely used on any topical wounds.
Is it safe to eat raw?
So it's safe to eat raw if you're not pregnant or on experience some type of irritable condition in the colon or bowels like IBS, because the gel does still have some of those anthocyanins that can cause a laxative effect. So you want to be mindful of that. And this is a pretty strong laxative effect. It's more strong in the skin. Like I wouldn't just eat the skin, even if I needed the laxative effect, just because it can be really intense. I'm more likely to incorporate it into a tea blend and then consume it that way instead of just eating the skin. For me personally, it would be a little intense. Was there another question? Okay. So in Central Florida, we have great weather for aloe. In fact, aloe grows all over Florida, almost anywhere in the United States, in the southern part of the United States. I don't know how well it would be in Montana, but it really likes the tropical environments. It likes heat and is pretty resistant to drought.
Are you going back to the yellow substance?
Yes. So there was a question about whether I was going to go back to the yellow substance, and definitely. So the yellow substance is really high in those anthocyanins. So aloe has this tremendous healing ability, and that starts with healing itself. So when I first cut the plant, almost instantly you can see the yellow latex forming. To heal the wound. So I would not consume that part because it would bring on diarrhea. It's pretty amazing what a good, powerful healer this plant is, though.
Definitely yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Any question?
Yeah, question?
Where can I buy aloe safe for growing? Make sure you repeat it.
So you can buy aloe safe for growing anywhere that you find herb plants in your area. Here in Central Florida, we have South Seminole Farm and Nursery. My husband just said our house, but you can private message me if you're nearby. We could arrange a drop of a little aloe baby. We do have an abundance of it. But if you're looking for something more long term, you can check into Green Isle Gardens. A Natural Farm and Nursery is another place that we have here in Central Florida. It's out in Apopka.
Anything down there, Kissimmee?
Comment below if you know of a place in your area that would be a really great place for someone to find a plant that would be safe to use this way near you, so that everybody can hear about it. Because like I said, there are 275 different species in the same family with aloe. About 3 to 4 are used commercially. I read conflicting things about them being able, all of them getting used in really similar ways that I mentioned here. But I do know Aloe barbanesis Miller, which is this one, is the one that is most commonly used here in what we call the U.S. So whichever nursery or plant person that you choose to go to, just make sure that they know the genus, the species of the plant you're buying. If you go in and say, hey, I want aloe, and they just bring you to a slew of plants that have green squishy leaves and some spikes on the end, you don't really know the botanical name, and I may not trust that source. If you go in and ask for that information and they know for sure which one they have and they know that it's used in these ways, then I would say go for it. Thanks for all the great questions. You can find all of our videos on our YouTube channel, and if you find us there and subscribe, then you'll get notified anytime we produce a new one. Right now it's every Sunday, but who knows in the future. If you have questions, you can comment either here or send me a message at maggie@holisticlivingschool.org. You can comment below the video and I'll watch for those questions and answer them to the best of my ability, or point you in the direction of a resource that might be helpful. If you're really into backyard beauty, check out our Emily Ruff, the director of our school, is teaching a backyard beauty class in June of 2020. Check it out. One book resource that I have is a book that I found that was in like 2008. It was taken out of a library shelf, and I find myself still referring to it whenever I'm thinking about working with aloe. It has scientific resources that I can refer to via the internet that are updated, but a lot of the historical uses are listed in there. Do we have questions?
There's 2. I've seen it sold in supermarkets. Is it safe to use always?
So it's a great question to wonder if aloe is safe to use always, because in the supermarket. And I think that this question is true for anything you're consuming, right? It's kind of a full-time job to make sure that you're doing enough research about the things that you're purchasing and putting into your body. The thing you want to think about if you're buying a big jug of aloe vera juice is where it's produced. What ingredients are listed on the label? If the only ingredient listed on the label is aloe vera juice, then there are definitely other things. Because if I just put aloe vera juice into a jug and let it sit on a shelf, it would be all kinds of funky within a couple weeks. So make sure that it has accurate listing of ingredients, and make sure it's a resource that you can trust. Another question?
I have aloe in my yard, but it has longer spikes. Is it okay to use?
That's a really good question, asking about a specific aloe plant. It's really hard for me to say without seeing a picture of that plant. And if you're asking plant people, if you'll notice on this one, whenever it's really little, it has all the little white spots on it. The best way to tell if it's this particular plant is to watch it grow, because whenever it's a baby, it looks like this, but as it matures, it loses those spots. And that's one of the identifying markers on the different types of aloe plants, are what happens when it gets older to the spots, and also the spikes on the end. So you'll notice whenever it's really young, it has spikes. So even if your plant is smaller and has the spikes, as it gets older, it has these spikes that are not thorns. They're just, they're rough, but not like a rose thorn or something. Another question?
Our 7-year-old son asks, can you use it for cooking?
Ooh, cooking. You know, I have no knowledge of anyone that uses it in cooking, other than using it like a beverage, possibly adding it to something like lemon balm and making popsicles. Is that kind of like cooking? Great question. Thank you for your time. Thanks for hanging out with the mosquitoes and me in our garden. And thank you for spending time with my friend Aloe here. And we'll see you next time.